Hey everybody, it's Zack and I am back with another episode of Elevate and Accelerate, and I'm super excited to be talking with you today about your core story, how to craft it, how to share it, and everything in between. So without further ado, let's get started. So there's a number of questions here that I'm going to address throughout the rest of this podcast or video, whatever, that I want to talk with you about today. And so question number one, what is a core story? Number two, how do I know what details to include or exclude? How do I know what my core story is? When do I share my core story? And that's all of them. And so I'm going to go through each one of these and show you some examples and hopefully give you some good information that can get you started on crafting your core story, sharing your core story, and knowing when and where to have the greatest impact in the lives of the people around you. So first question is, what is a core story? Now, there's a lot of different things that people talk about when they talk about their core story. I've seen a few different definitions out there. And so what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a core story is the why behind why you do what you do. Okay, so that core story can shift depending on what audience you're talking to. We're applying this to business situations. And so this is the core story of why you started your business, why you're passionate about helping people in the way that you do, and tying that all together in a way that builds trust and confidence in your marketplace with the audience, your prospects, your clients, and everybody else that might be paying attention. So in a very short way, that is what a core story is. Now, the next question, how do I know what details to include or exclude? And then after that, we're going to jump into how we can craft your core story. So I get this question all the time. Should I talk about this? Should I not talk about that? And it's a really difficult question to answer because, quite frankly, I don't know the details of your story, and I don't know which details are the most important ones and which ones aren't. But there's a couple of things that I can give you to help you understand what you should put in and what you shouldn't put in. First and foremost, and I steal this out of Stephen Covey's book and I use it everywhere, and he talks about it in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and that is starting with the end in mind. The same thing is true when you're crafting your story. Think about, what is the objective here in me sharing my story? What do I want people to feel? What do I want people to walk away with? Do I want them to take some sort of action? All of those things and answering those questions is going to determine what details you include, what things you talk about, how long you talk about them, again, depending on how much time you have. Did somebody just ask you your why and you've got 5 minutes, or are you sharing your story on a podcast, that's going to be 40 minutes long? What you talk about and how deep you go into those things is going to change depending on set and setting. So starting with the end in mind is a really good place to start. The other thing that I talk about with people is you don't share anything that you have not done the work of processing and healing from. Okay. This isn't a group therapy session or anything like that. Those are very helpful. But in this situation, you are sharing the things that you've been able to process through, that you've healed from, and that are a part of your story, an integrated part of your story, and have really become your strength in many different ways. And has probably influenced why you do what you do, how you do what you do, the ways that you talk to people. And so it is important to talk about those things. And I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway because it is possible, especially when you're talking about using stories, since they have such a great impact on how we think and how we act and how we feel. You shouldn't be sharing things out of desire to manipulate your audience, right? That's not what we're talking about here. We're just talking about sharing our stories in a way that is authentic, impactful, and communicates the most essential parts so that people get to know who we are and build a level of trust with us that we're looking to accomplish. So, all right. Hopefully that's helpful for helping you to figure out what details you include or exclude. We can get into more details probably in a little bit if we need to, but I think that's a good place to start. So let's get into the meat of what this podcast is going to be about today, or this episode. How do I know what my core story is? And so this is a simple practice, actually, that Nick Danton, the CEO and founder of our company, what he talked about, and I believe he might have gotten this from Dan Sullivan or somewhere else. I don't know. I'm not sure who to give it credit to, but but I'm sure there was somebody else out there smarter than I who came up with this, but it is really helpful. And so what I want you to do is, if you've got a piece of paper, if you can do it in your mind, you probably can. So I recommend getting a piece of paper if that's possible. If you're listening to this in your car or at a place where you can't, start categorizing these things, but you're definitely going to have to write it down to make it a whole lot easier. And so I want you to do is separate your page in half. If you do it in landscape, straight down the middle here, or straight across the middle, um, uh, laterally, and then what I want you to do is separate that into two more or three more sections. So I'm making this super complicated for you, and that's my intention. So let's try to make that really simple. If you've got a piece of paper, you're looking at it landscape, you want to draw a line from left to right that cuts it down the middle. Then you want to break that up into three more columns. Okay, so you're going to have a top three sections and a bottom three sections. Okay, the top three sections are going to be the positive memories that you have. The bottom three sections are going to be the negative memories that you have. Okay, the section all the way off to the left for the positive and the negative is going to be the first third of your life, however you want to break that up. For me, it was really easy to do it. When I did it the first time, I broke it up into 12-year chunks. So the first 12 years of my life, then that middle section of the positive and negative is going to be the next third of your life. And then the last section of this is going to be from that point until now. Okay, so mine was 1 to 12, 12 to 24, 24 to 36. There we go. So hopefully that's easy and makes a little bit of sense, and I didn't confuse it too much for you. And what I want you to do is I want you to just, in each section, take some time, a few minutes or so, whatever it is, and just write down as many of the things that come to mind as possible. And it could be anything. And again, we separated this out between positive and negative. So, what are some positive memories that you have? And try to list like 5 to 7 of them in each one of those sections. Okay, you do that for positive, for negative, and for each of those age groups that you have laid out before you. And once you do that, you're going to have a look at like, oh, here are some stories that I could tell, both positive and negative, that have really shaped me, right? Because these are the ones that come to mind. These are the ones that you think of. Now, in each one of those sections, you could probably cull that down a little bit to, 3 to 5 things. Maybe 3 things would be a great one. What are the 3 most impactful moments of those memories that you have, that you would hold on to, right, as defining moments of your life, or defining memories that you really enjoy or don't enjoy? And then once you have those, what I want you to do is go through them, the positive first and then the negative, and think about each one of those, for each one of those stories, what emotions were you feeling? Right? Because this is the key here, is really being able to connect to what was happening to you, both positive and negative in those situations. What were you feeling? And again, there's very simple baseline types of emotions, right? Happy, sad, fearful, safe, and whatever that might be. And so try to get down to what were the key and root emotions that you were feeling in each one of those situations, and then see if there's a pattern, right? Is there a pattern of feeling a certain way throughout your life, whether that was fear or whatever? Maybe it was joy, maybe it was safety, maybe it was happiness, maybe it was contentment, whatever it was, and make a list of what those were. Now, I remember when I mentioned earlier talking about starting with the end in mind. What I want you to do is I want you to think about your audience now, right? Think about if your audience, let's say, since we're talking about this from a business perspective, let's say your audience is your prospects, right? And so what is your prospect feeling? If I'm a financial advisor, excuse me, your prospects might be feeling uncertainty. They might be feeling doubt about their future. They might be feeling fear. They might be feeling a lot of different things, right? And so put yourself in their shoes, or maybe they've told you what they're feeling. What are those feelings that they're feeling? And then can you relate that back to some of the stories that you've had, right? Is there times where you felt that in your life? And now you can see how this is going to help bridge the gap between what your prospects are currently feeling and what they're going through and what sort of emotional state they're in, and that you can empathize with where they've been because you've been there as well. Perhaps your story matches up to a similar story of theirs, right? You as a kid, your mom and dad were working really hard. Your dad passed away, left your mom with just about nothing, and so she had to figure it out all on her own. They didn't have insurance, and so here's a single mom raising kids who now has to go get a job and all these other things. And this is a story of a client of mine I was just talking to not that long ago, and then so him seeing his mom and what she had to go through then catapulted him into wanting to find ways to help other people not go through that same experience. Right. And so now he helps people in their retirement. He helps them plan for situations like that where you might lose a loved one, and what sort of things are out there to help protect your family should something bad happen to you. And so great example of a story of understanding what it's like for the prospect and where they are in the tension that they're living in. Now, when we've talked about crafting stories before, when we've talked about the elements and key elements to a story, it's really three things. You've got the character, you've got the tension, and then you've got the resolution. Right. And so we're introduced to the hero and the supporting characters. And then from that, there's some sort of obstacle or tension that gets brought into the story. And the higher the tension, the more on the edge of the seats we are, the more that we're paying attention, the more that we're involved. Right. And then as that tension escalates and escalates, and then the hero finally, steps into whatever it is that they have to do and overcomes the dragon and defeats him. And, now she's, gets all the benefits and everything, and we move towards the resolution, right? Think about your story in the same way. When you're talking about your core story, you are talking about you as the hero of your own journey. When you're talking to your prospects about how you can help them, they are the heroes of their own story, right? They don't need another hero to come in. You're not going to be their hero, their savior, or anything like that. You are going to be the guide. Donald Miller talks a lot about this in his book, Story Brand. I've got it sitting over here. I'm looking at it. Yep. Story Brand. So really he does a great job of talking about being the guide and stepping in, and it's really great work, and so you can check that out. But in the same way, in your core story, you've got to look at this from what obstacles did you overcome? Is it a rags to riches story that got you to where you are today, and now you want to help people do the same thing? And really attaching to those emotions is really important. Now, those are the emotions that you felt then. Now you're looking at the emotions that you feel now, right? So what elements of your story and what elements of your future story, right? The journey that you are on and where you want to go. This is your mission. This is what you're passionate about doing and helping more people. And tying all of those things together are the key elements to your core story. So when I talk to people about my story, especially in the context of me being passionate about stories and helping people with their story, I talk to them about the fact that I grew up with lots of trauma and different things in my life that really shaped who I am. And without going into all of those details for the sake of time right now, because of that, and because of my desire to be accepted, and because of my parents' divorce and other things that played into my own personal dynamic and turmoil that was going on inside, I became very ashamed of my story. And my desire to be accepted was paramount. And so I would make up stories. I would literally lie to try to make up stories to be accepted at school, or to make people like me, or to say things that I thought people would like me. And I lived a lot of my life doing things that I thought other people would like just to be accepted. And then living really two different stories. My internal story, and then the story outside that everybody else saw. And really that all came to a head when I met my wife, because I couldn't keep up that construct in a serious relationship with somebody else. And so it all started crumbling down. And with her strength and support and help along the way, with therapy and all sorts of other things, not to mention the PTSD that came out of being overseas and everything else playing into this mixture, It was really a recipe for having a story that was buried beneath all of this other stuff. And so I've spent the last decade or more working through all of that and really embracing my story and telling my story and sharing my story and letting other people know really who I am. And through that process, really from the beginning of starting to be able to integrate my story and to be able to share my story, uh, things have changed in my life. When I started talking about the fact that I was deployed, when I used to not want to share that with people because I was embarrassed about the fact that, I had a relatively decent experience while I was over there compared to other people. And really, as I started to share these things about my life and these elements about my life, other people would understand that they've been through it too. And so now I was attracting people who were like me and who are also on a mission of making a difference in the lives of other people. And so it was like success built on top of success, and opportunity came and all these different things. And as I started to get more integrated with myself, it was just better. It was just better all around. And so ultimately, it's brought me to where I am today and why I'm talking to you and why I'm so passionate about it, right? Because I know what it's like to be ashamed of your story. I know what happens when you don't share your story and you don't deal with those things on an extreme level, probably different than many of you. But then I also know what it's like when you start to integrate your story, when you start to share your story, when you start to know your story and help other people because of your story. And when you combine all those things together, it's just, you don't even know what's going to happen. There's opportunities and things that I've been given that I had no idea of, that I couldn't even have planned for. And so it's just really exciting, and it's exciting to watch other people who start sharing their stories and have other people sharing their stories for them go through that same transformation and process too. So all of that to say, as you're crafting your core story, again, remember that you want to share the things that you've worked through. You want to attach yourself to the emotions that you felt back then. And really, is it the same as what your prospects and clients are feeling too? And then how do you craft a story in a way that really helps them understand that you understand them? Okay. And so the last question here, as we sort of wrap up our time together, is when do I share my core story? So the simplest answer to that is whenever it's appropriate, right? So you don't just walk in and start sharing your story to anybody that's going to listen. But there are places where it is appropriate. So first of all, your marketing. Sharing your story in your marketing is a really good place. Now, where in your marketing is a conversation for a different day. Uh, but you should be introducing people to who you are and why you do what you do. The other part is you can put it on the About Me section of your website. You can have bits and pieces of your story throughout the sales process, right? So, in one part where you're empathizing with your prospects and showing them that you understand what you've been through, you can share the part of your story that identifies with that emotion, right? The feelings of fear, or uncertainty, or doubt, or wanting more, or whatever it might be that you do. And then other elements of your story and talking about how you've achieved that and help your clients achieve that. And so you can help them achieve that too. But really, you should be thinking about sharing your story from the framework of any relationship, right? We talk a lot about business being all about building and maintaining relationships. But it's the same thing in romantic relationships, right? If you apply this principle anywhere, if you're out somewhere and you are introducing yourself to somebody, you're not just going to walk up and start telling them your core story, right? You're not going to start telling them everything about you. There's levels of trust that need to be built along the way. And so, yeah, maybe you do start a little bit shallow. What's your name? Who are you? Where are you from? What do you like? Right? And so that's the stage one of building trust with somebody. Same thing's true in your business. You don't want to come out the gate sharing everything with them. But you need to take some time to introduce them to who you are and why you're talking to them right now. But then, really, the fundamental part of that is asking them the questions. Well, who are you? What do you like? What is your life all about? What are you interested in? What are you afraid of? What do you enjoy? Like, you need to ask your prospect those questions and spend the majority of the time getting to know them like you would in any relationship. And then when they want to know more about you, they will ask. And that's when you share your story, right? Or that's when you have it at the right points throughout your sales process or on your website and different places where they can go and learn more about you. I think there was, I don't remember I don't remember where I read this or who told me this. So I will give credit to somebody if I figure out who it was. But the most clicked on places of your website are the logo at the top to get back to the homepage, probably the About Me section, and then like services or contact, right? And so it's like, I think one of the most clicked on places is About Us or About Me. Like, people want to know who they're working with, they want to understand who you are. And so that is a great place to put that story where they can really get introduced to who you are. But you should always let them know, right, when it's on your website, what action they should take next. So anyway, I hope you found that helpful. Again, this is the elements to your core story. Going back over those pivotal moments of your life, and then really, if you have like a catalyst moment, what was that thing that changed the trajectory of your life? Some people have it, some people don't. It's really up to you to determine whether or not you have that catalyst moment. But if you do have that catalyst moment, that's obviously a great place to really share your story with people leading up to that moment where whatever that moment was, you had a near death experience, and then coming out on the other side of that, you decided to dedicate your life to helping people instead of chasing a corporate dream, whatever it is, right? So if you have that catalyst moment, that's going to be a good element to your core story. But if you didn't, hopefully the elements that I shared with you today are going to help you get to that key emotion that really attaches and helps you empathize with your audience and helps them to empathize with you as well. So great. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, feel free to like, subscribe, follow, do all those fun things you're supposed to do. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to me today. And I will have another episode for you soon. So thanks for joining me, and I look forward to talking with you then.